Hey everybody, welcome. All right.
Wow, that's really nice.
Yeah, thank you so much for everybody for showing up. My name's Tom Kherkher, this is Josh Sanford. This is the 4th edition of the Road to Justice Tour. Okay, so we have 2 great guests here tonight. Before we get to them, I want to do a little preface on the reason for this conversation. I want to tell you a little bit about Josh and myself, and then we'll get into the people that you actually want to hear from. So, like I said, my name's Tom Kherkher. I started my own law firm in 2018. I grew it to about 7 people, primarily focused on single event cases, personal injury, and first-party insurance. I met Josh at a conference, maybe 2020?
2021.
Yeah, 2021. We became great friends. We talked all the time. We came up with this thesis, this white paper that is now the backbone of our firm, that AI is the future. It's the better mousetrap. While there might be some cons to it, there's no point in swimming against the current. There are a lot of things, a lot of ripple effects that AI will have on the legal industry, whether that be efficiency. First and foremost, we are Supio customers, so I want to give a quick shout out to Supio. And yeah, thank you. And we'll tell you a little bit about how we use Supio. But also, I think I'm hesitant to say negative side effects, because I think for society it's a positive thing. But our thesis, our firm is built around the idea that the car accident is going away, at least in the capacity that we see it today. Has anybody ever seen or been in a Waymo? Okay. Yeah, for anybody who hasn't, I actually recommend you take one home tonight. And funny enough, Phoenix is the first place where Waymo was introduced on the public road, as early as 2017, I believe. And we're total nerds about this stuff. I could tell you about Waymo. I could tell you that its origins are from 2014, a team of Google hired a team of Stanford engineers. They called it Project Chauffeur, greenlit by Google in 2007. They've been working on this for almost 2 decades now. They got a fully operational Waymo before they integrated deep learning and AI. Now with AI, it is exponentially safer. The data that has come out with all the Waymo miles that have been driven say it's 91% safer than a human-driven car. The way that Waymo values itself, which, by the way, so far they have only raised $15 billion, which is 1 month of Google's profit. Okay, I'm getting sidetracked, but Waymo started within Google, spun out of Google. Now it's its own company, but of course Google's its biggest backer. They've only raised $15 billion, 1 month of Google's profit. They're saying it's 91% safer than human drivers. The way Waymo values itself is not on the rideshare business, which is about a $200 billion a year business. It's not on the automaker business, which is about a $2 trillion a year business. They actually model themselves on the injury and related injury market. So personal injuries, not just the legal aspect, but the healthcare aspect, the loss of economic value aspect, accounts for roughly $470 billion of economic damage a year in the United States, okay? The personal injury aspect of it is about 60 of it, okay? So lawsuits recovered by lawyers through the process is about $60 billion, but the whole economic side effect is 470. Well, if you're 90% safer than human drivers, Waymo values itself at around $420 billion today, directly correlated with the value of how much they think they're going to save in the entire economy, okay? And obviously you get scale effects as more driverless cars come on the road. It's just going to be safer. They're going to communicate with each other. And this isn't to rain on anybody's parade, because this week we've signed up personal injury cases as well. But we built a firm where we don't want to be caught flat-footed in the future. So we don't know if that's 2 years from now, we don't know if that's 10 years from now, but it's something that we're very cognizant of. As a result, we have scaled which is now the largest in the country, data breach and privacy class action subgroup of our firm. In the past 24 months, nobody's filed more data breach class actions than us. We think that data is becoming ever more important. People's data, the value of data, is extremely valuable. And we also have some really interesting cases, not against Supio, because we love Supio, but we are leading the charge. We have cases against NVIDIA, Meta, Snap, Apple, Amazon, Runway, OpenAI.
And TikTok.
ByteDance, yeah. ByteDance on how they aggregated their data to train their LLMs. We are putting our money where our mouth is. We believe in AI. We believe in the good of AI. We tasked Supio over a year ago, maybe close to 2 years ago now, with helping us build a system to help us get complaints out quickly. In the class action world, your opponent isn't always defendants, it's other plaintiff lawyers taking your case and filing it before you. So we have personally tasked Supio to build us a system, which they have, which helps us draft complaints. We have a rule in our firm where if we sign up a data breach case, that claim needs to be drafted and filed within 24 hours. Ideally within 4 hours, but we'll settle for 1 day. They're a great partner to have. Josh, am I missing anything?
No, I'm happy to talk also.
Yeah.
Damn. We have a great partnership. Tommy talks, I listen, it works great.
That's right.
Yeah, so we're not out there saying like, hey, we want things to change. We don't want there to be AI. We want there to be AI. We're just saying like, this is what's happening. We're gonna play the game as it is developing in the world. So there are opportunities for us, like we kind of not lucked into, but like Tommy found a way for us to get into some AI litigation that's a kind of once in a lifetime opportunity, and it's great. But actually what's happening inside your firms with the use of AI is kind of a once in a lifetime opportunity also, in that like we all have opportunities right now to transform our careers, whether it's what we work on, how we work on it, like how we get the work done, ways that have not existed. They didn't exist 3 years ago. In fact, we were talking to Tim Short earlier today, and we were talking about some things that Supio can do. And, he kind of talks me through this, and I'm like, man, 5 years ago, like, if we had this conversation, I literally would not even know what we were talking about. Agents and AI getting stuff done for you, like it just does not, the world's changing and we're trying to stay ahead of it. And the reason we're on tour together is to make sure that everyone is able to participate in a conversation about like, what is happening? What does the future look like? Not what do we want it to look like? What does it actually look like? And what are we doing in response to the changes that are actually happening?
That's right. And the best way for us to learn is to talk to other lawyers who are at the forefront. So with that said, let's bring up our first guest, Nasser.
Yeah.
So is it okay if I completely disagree with you guys before I even sit down?
Yes.
That is what we want.
Yeah. How was Tommy wrong? Because I know I was right.
You were completely right. Tommy was completely wrong. So
Let's hear it.
3.324 trillion. You want to guess what that was? The amount of human-driven miles in 2025, and it's on pace to even exceed that in 2026. Human-driven miles, not Waymo, not AI-driven miles, human-driven miles, and that it continues going up every single year. And so I agree that the world is changing. It's just not changing as much as these very, very smart people in this room think it is.
Go on. Yeah, that's great.
Look, there's we talk about like a K-shaped economy often, right? That there's the haves and the have-nots. And there's also a little bit of the ones that know and the ones that do not know. And all the folks in this room, all the folks that are sort of AI adjacent, working with companies like Supio, talking to you folks, they're at the sort of that pinnacle, the top. They know what's happening. They know what's coming. They see what's coming. But I promise you, the vast majority of the people in this country are nowhere near this sort of technology, nowhere near this sort of education when it comes to these sort of things. And so, is it coming? Absolutely. Is it coming at the pace that we think it is? It's just not. I went to a conference in 2017. It was 2016 or 2017 from, everyone knows him, the biggest PI law firm in the country, right? And he does his annual symposium once a year in Orlando, and he brings all his thousands and thousands of lawyers, and he talks about the future of PI and the future of everything else. And he was talking about it in 2017, that autonomous vehicles are coming, and we need to prepare for autonomous vehicles.
And they're still coming.
And they're still coming. And they're still coming, and they're still coming, and they're still coming. So I think it's sort of interesting that we need to, at least in my view, we need to kind of frame it and understand that while we need to understand the technology, we need to adapt to the technology, and we need to take advantage of the technology, it just, for the most part, the citizenship just has not adopted it.
Have you seen in your own practice the effects of private equity shaping the economics around your motor vehicle accident cases?
Again, it's the haves and the have-nots, right? So it's the conversation that people are having in our industry. Private equity, what's private equity going to do? When you hear about the MSOs that are being signed, or this $450 million deal, or this deal, or that deal. Look, there's a reason that private equity wants to be in our industry. It's because it's a profitable industry. The 3.324 trillion miles driven, right? I mean, private equity wants to be involved in something like that. I think where private equity, what they're seeing is that I don't think it would shock you to know that lawyers are inefficient for the most part, right? That we like paper, we like three-hole punching, we like doing all that kind of stuff, and private equity is the exact opposite. For the longest time, it might sound sacrosanct, or it might sound sort of, I tell people at my firm all the time, we need to behave more like insurance companies. I know that sounds crazy, right? What do you mean? They're the devil. They are, but at the same time, though, they understand efficiencies. They understand how to leverage technology. They understand all those sorts of things, right? And I think that's why private equity wants to come into our side of the industry, because they see how inefficient we are, and by kind of turning the lever a little bit, we can become even more profitable.
Nasser, can you expand upon that? I have two questions. First, what kind of volume are you doing? And two, how are you leveraging technology to accommodate that kind of volume?
So, we pride ourselves that we're, my hope is that you see Jeff's face everywhere you drive in the Valley. And I'm very proud of being a billboard lawyer, very, very proud of it, because the work we get to do for this state based on, our foundation and all that kind of stuff, we couldn't do that if we weren't a profitable, well-run company. On a bad month, we retain somewhere between 1,000 to 1,200 clients a month, in a bad month. But in my firm, internally, of those 1,000 to 1,200 cases, our lawyers are only handling somewhere between 100 to 200 of those cases, right? We're trying to meld best of both worlds. We want to be billboard lawyers, we want to advertise, we want to be the best at it, but we also want to only focus on those high value, high leverage cases and refer out the vast, vast, vast majority of our cases. I think that, hopefully when most lawyers see Jeff's face across town, they actually are happy, because he's keeping a lot of the lights on for a lot of folks around town. So, and how do we use the technology? In multiple ways. One, if we have that many cases, how are we identifying the cases that do have that high value, right? That we're able to kind of pinpoint that these are the cases we want to be working on. That's number one, that we're using the technology. We're a proud partner of Supio. We've been with them since almost the beginning. I think it's June 2024, something like that. And from every step of the process, right? From the day the case gets intaked at my firm through trial, it's we're using the platform, we're using the technology. So step one, identify those high value cases. Step 2, excuse my language, work the shit out of those cases, right? Don't leave a page unturned, don't leave anything left behind, and work them until there's nothing left to be worked on.
And so, Nasser, how do I say this right? Have you seen, with dealing with so many cases, and I know we talked a little bit beforehand, you have roughly 160 people. If you didn't have the efficiencies that you have in place, do you think that you would need 500 people to do what you do? I mean, how many man hours are you saving through your use of AI?
You know, if I'm being honest, I have no idea. It's the number one success of Jeff's law firm is our incredible lawyers and middle management. It just is, right? The amount of work they do, I don't do much. They do it all, but they harness the tech, right? They use it on a day-to-day basis, so they can filter directions, work, all those sorts of things to everybody else. It's the thing that I think gets lost in all of this. It's why it's sort of, I just kind of went back to that first thing, that this is still, and I think will always be, a people-first industry. It just will. If you're going to be working on high-value cases, if you're going to be looking a mom that just lost her son in the eye, it's going to need a human, and it's going to need a really, really, really good lawyer on the other side that is doing everything they can to get that person justice, right? And so the first step is always, you got to have the right people. Always, always, always. And then at that point, you know, we fit the technology in after. I mean, so I don't know how to answer your question other than I'm lucky with the right people, and then from there, we find the right technology to fit those people, right? We make it work for us. I probably, if we didn't have these sort of platforms, triple, quadruple the amount of people, but if I didn't have the right people, I'd be, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Josh?
You don't talk very much, it seems like.
Not true.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's accurate. I'd like to ask a question about some of your non-motor vehicle accident work.
Yeah.
I think your firm has gotten into advocacy for sexual abuse victims. Tell us a little bit about that. Like, what types of cases are you working on? Where's that coming from? And how's that different than your motor vehicle accident docket?
Sure, that's a great question. Thank you for asking, because it's the thing that I think I'm most proud of currently. I think nationwide, we represent more victims of, in Maryland, the institutional sex abuse that happened in Maryland, across their prisons, across their juvenile detention centers. We have more clients than any other firm in the country. And so we do a lot of institutional sex abuse work, but now a lot of our work is focused on Uber and Lyft rideshare. And so maybe that's why I'm a little against sort of autonomous vehicles and sort of the, just your sort of, these technology companies that flout the technology and forget about the fact that they're transporting people and they're supposed to be taking care of people every day, right? If any of y'all have read the New York Times exposés that talk about every 8 minutes, right? Every 8 minutes, an Uber or Lyft driver was assaulting a person that was in their care. And so we litigate those cases across the country.
Have you had to change you've had to train your staff or get new staff, or how have you actually made that happen?
Yeah, both. We've essentially created a whole new law firm. So we have just an entire sex abuse division of our firm that's just focused on those cases. And I think that's really where the technology more than anywhere else has come into play. Since the beginning of sort of our partnership with Supio, we've been working on developing a way to systematize these cases a little bit more, right? Because the proof and the evidence is the same. It's different, right? Everyone has a different injury that happened, or everyone has a different sort of ride or whatever, but it's the same evidence. It's the same rideshare receipt. It's the same, unfortunately, rape kits. It's the same hospital records. It's all those sorts of things. And so what we've been able to do is when an individual calls our law firm, and we're intaking them. It's all live intakes. We're never sort of not doing it that way. It's Supio now. They're taking that intake, and that intake is then creating a plaintiff fact sheet, which is then creating a short form complaint, which is then creating the discovery documents, right? So within just that initial intake, by the time that 35 to 55 minute initial intake is done, all the litigation documents have been created. And that's the only way I think you can do it at scale. Otherwise, like what you were talking about, then all of a sudden you're not going to see Jeff's face on as many billboards. Let's just put it that way, right? And so there has to be some sort of economies, some efficiency, and that's where we are really taking advantage of it.
And so it sounds like that gives you some speed.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, there's a beauty in the contingency model. I don't know who I was having this conversation with earlier. There's an article that was in last week that was talking about that many law school students that are leaving, the big 10, 15 law schools in the country, right? They're ditching big law. They're no longer trying to go to these big law firms. And where do they want to go? They want to go to plaintiffs' firms, right? Because there are two reasons. One, obviously money. It's okay. You take pride in the fact that you can earn a good living and take care of your family. But as important is trial work, right? And if I sit in a room with 100 lawyers, 100 random lawyers across the country, and I say, raise your hand if you've ever done a trial. Maybe you get one to raise their hand. If I sit in a room with 100 plaintiffs lawyers and I ask them, how many of you have gone to trial? Every one of them is raising their hand, right? That's what we do. We go to trial. We try cases. And so what we've had to create is the efficiencies to allow us to try a lot more cases, right? Because going back to the very beginning of what I was talking about, while we like to help as many people as we can, we're not going to take any shortcuts when it comes to the actual justice we're going to try to get these folks, right? And the only way to do it is by litigating. And so all these steps, all these things we do is to try to just kind of get an advantage and try to get us to that place quicker, try to litigate these cases quicker.
Yeah. Can we get Larry up here? Yeah, Larry, come join us. All right.
All that fake clapping, y'all don't even know me.
Well, they're thinking it can't possibly be worse.
Come on, what you talking about?
Yeah, whoa. Larry, thanks for joining us.
Glad to be here.
So, on what Nasser was talking about, tell us a little about yourself, tell us about your firm, tell us about what areas of practice you are having your team focus on.
All right. So, my name is Larry Taylor. I manage the Kherkher firm for Texas, Oklahoma, and New Mexico. I primarily deal with mass tort litigation and sexual assault. I also oversee our employment division, our criminal division, and our single event.
Wow. So you have a robust practice.
I do. I have some very good attorneys, and for my staff that's watching, my paralegals, you're safe. I love you more than AI. I don't have money to give you a bonus, so I don't have money to really spend on anything else, so I love you.
Okay, so tell us how you are implementing technology to manage such a widespread, broad practice areas.
I've been with Supio, I think, from the onset, right? And so I've come from a technology background. And so I really loved when I met the founder, Jerry, and talked to him about what his company did and what it could do. And I've enjoyed watching it grow and service companies or law firms like yourself. I speak all the time on AI situations, and because while it's very good, some courts don't like it, right? And some courts, you basically, in mass torts, you have to list out everything that you use AI for and get permission to use it, either from leadership or from the courts. And that is a telling sign, especially with all of the fake citations that have been done that we all read about.
Yeah. I know at our firm, our rule is we try to be really AI forward, but the one hard and fast rule is you can use AI for writing, but no citation generation. You have to go to Westlaw and you have to manually look it up. Even right now, you're seeing some horror stories of attorneys that are getting caught with hallucinating AI, and it's even coming from, like Westlaw's AI or LexisNexis's AI. Well, I think LexisNexis was the one that got popped in the article that I was reading about. But these lawyers, they file an affidavit with the court after they get caught. They go, I was using the LexisNexis product. I didn't think it could hallucinate. So while I think in the next 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, maybe most of that gets solved, it's certainly a real interesting time to be in. Larry, I know we were talking earlier, and you're very modest. Can you? Larry effectively founded the hair relaxer litigation. So can you tell us a little bit about that? How you uncovered it, what you did, how you aggregated more clients than anybody in the country? Can you just tell us a little bit about that?
So myself and one of the leads in the hair relaxer litigation, Food the Bros, and I were talking, and we kind of noticed the same things about this chemical that these women are putting in their hair. If you've ever been in a hair salon where this chemical is being used, it smells similar to an oil refinery, right? If you let your window down driving by an oil refinery, it is eerily close. And with everything that we were finding out about PFAS and all these forever chemicals, we just felt that there was something behind something. And so as we began to really look and investigate the case, the Chang study came out. And so we had already began to really talk to people in doing our due diligence before we filed a lawsuit. And when that came out, we knew we were in the right place at the right time.
And how many total clients do you have across the country?
Oh, Jesus. I will say, being in leadership, I represent all of the 10,000 plus women who are in this litigation in some form or another. And so I had the misfortune of doing good work and getting caught up in the bankruptcy. And so both myself and Jane Conroy head up the Revlon portion of this litigation. And so if you've ever done bankruptcy, it is horrible. The rules make no sense, and it's a nightmare. God bless anybody who does that work.
Okay, so other than mass torts, you do a lot of civil rights stuff, correct?
Correct.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Man, that's the labor of love, right? I represent right now a 19-year-old African-American female who was drugged out of a McDonald's by 2 police officers and placed in the back of a police car in handcuffs, head first, like a pretzel. All of us know as lawyers or just people, you can get a ticket for not wearing your seatbelt. You can get even more in trouble for not having a child in a car seat. He placed this young woman in the back of a police car without any restraints, upside down. And when you deal with cases like that, and you deal with people who have lost loved ones because just stupid actions, gung-ho, or, young woman leaves a party, college party, right? She's with her friends. She had a little bit too much to drink. She may have been a little too wordy. Doesn't give you the right to put hands on her and molest her, right? I heard Nasser talk about the Uber drivers. I represented one of the first Uber driver sexual assault cases in this country in like 2011, 2012. And this woman had beer bottles cracked across the back of her head and just groped until she can get out the car. And so you hear these stories, and like I say, this is a labor of love because these are cases that you're not necessarily going to do better than, 5% margin on, right? You might break even. And most of the time you don't even do that, but it's work that must be done.
Yeah, and
I brought the room down.
No, this is important. I mean, Larry, if you had a pie chart of the percentages of cases that you have or the areas of cases that you have in, what is it, 30% car accidents, 30% mass torts, 30% civil rights, 10% other, or what does that pie chart look like?
I'm still mad at the fact that I graduated from college the year you were born.
Yeah.
I'm really upset about that. I'm happy to be alive, but that was daunting. The percentages, man, that's a good question. That's a good question. Really thinking about it, I would say each, other than mass torts, is a major part, so it's probably roughly around 40, and everything else is around 10 to 15% across the board.
Gotcha. But in other words, you having a healthy mass tort business or an MVA business or a criminal business allows you to take on the projects that might be labors of love, right?
It does, and I have a great staff, right? And so a lot of the cases that I work, and this is, once again, one of the good and bad, every birthday or Father's Day, I probably get about 60 text messages, if not 100. And I get pictures of kids that were 6 when their parents died, and we got great verdicts, and they graduate from high school, and I get pictures of their cars, prom pictures. And so, those are the things that I always share that with my staff to let them know, hey, look, when I'm bugging you on a Sunday and asking you to get me something because I can't sleep or I got a wild hair up my ass and I just got to get this out. Can I cuss? It's too late, isn't it? I wanted my staff to see this is why we do what we do, right? Because these children, these families need us to be there for them, to be the voice, to be the Nassers of the world, and to bring home the justice that they deserve.
I can definitely get behind that. That's beautiful. Nasser, can you break down your pie chart?
Yeah, it's about a third PI, 50% sex abuse, and around, what is that left, 17% mass tort. Larry's talking about, we like sex, it's an awful term, but the reason I think we're competent at sex abuse cases is that you can treat them as single event cases, right? I mean, if, I struggle with mass torts just because I was just a plaintiff's lawyer, just, trying cases all day, right? And so I like to get my hands dirty, and so at any given point when it comes to these sex abuse cases, if one of my lawyers just needs to take it to trial, we can. And so that's why we feel so comfortable and we like those cases so much. But what Larry was talking about is, just kind of triggered a thought of mine that during COVID and right after George Floyd's murder, we had some civil rights cases, and I have never had a more difficult and tricky deposition in my life than when I deposed the former Phoenix Police Chief Jerry Williams. And it was 4 hours of, I'll just cuss, bullshit. I mean, just like, she is trained to not answer a single question. They've been deposed more times than I've practiced depositions. I mean, these cases are hard. The law is stacked up against you. It's, if all you have to do is prove gross negligence, you're great, but that's not it, right? I mean, essentially, these are incredibly difficult. And so, like, what folks like you are doing is just, it's the Lord's work, and you're right. You have to have a robust docket. You have to be able to kind of systemize a lot of this stuff to be able to do this kind of work, because it's important work. Otherwise, people are just going to be left to not be able to get justice.
It sounds obvious that you guys have had success across a couple different dockets and domains. On the MVA side, the success has to be largely attributable to having a great brand, I would imagine. But does that cross over to the abuse cases, or how are you able to build that sort of a docket?
The brand definitely helps.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, being in Arizona for 33 years certainly helps, and I think everyone in this room has a Jeff Phillips story, and if you haven't, then you soon enough will. Trust me. The man knows business. He's just his mind is just by numbers, right? The numbers tell us what we need to do and what we don't need to do, and that's building that docket. Just kind of came out of that, right? So it's relationships. It's again knowing lawyers and knowing law firms in every single state, but again. It started with MVAs because we are trial lawyers. And so when someone refers us a sex abuse case, when someone refers us an Uber case, we can look them in the face and say, we will take this all the way, right? I mean, the mass tort side of things, again, we let folks like Larry do their work because we're just not good at it. We're not competent at it, right? We don't know, we get those cases, we refer them out, and that's sort of our mantra. Let the best handle the best. We just think we're the best at those kind of things. So yes, it does help. It does help greatly, but just systems, right? I mean, systems every step of the way. Like in order to be a great PI lawyer, right, you better have systems in place. It's not just about that pixie dust of being able to go stand and right. Am I right? Then standing in front of a jury. We don't get to do that often, right? It's about understanding how to run your docket. It's about understanding what your paralegals are going to be doing. It's understanding what you're going to be doing on any given day. If you're not running your individual, we have pods at our firm, so I think of everything as pods. But if you're not running your individual pod like a business, you're just not going to be successful, right? So that's why I think, the best personal injury firms, the best mass tort firms, everything, their leadership, their visionaries, they are just businessmen at the end of the day, right? Because it is, you have to be systemized, you have to be organized. And so, yeah.
I might not be screwed on tight, so I'm more of a kamikaze type. So back when I was in the courtroom more often, I literally would have judges say, Larry, can you prepare in 2 hours? I got a pro se litigant and they need help, and I want to see you try this case because I want to be entertained. And I just love juries, right? Juries are like, to me, what an audience is to Mozart. And I love reading people, and quite honestly, so I got my reputation for being nutty. And I used to win and try cases in small Confederate towns. Like when I walked up to a courtroom, if it had a Confederate general and a Confederate flag, I was like, yes, taking the gold home, right? So much so that one time I had a couple of jury members ask me, it's like, Larry, you did a great job. Let's go get some barbecue. And I was like, hey man, it is 6 o'clock. It gets dark at 7. And you and I both know I need to be out of here by then. I said, I appreciate it, but I gotta go. But I mean, I just love juries because it's about the Constitution. It's about that thing that all of us depend on, right? When I worked in Congress, I worked on the Lilly Ledbetter Act. Right? I'm actually a lifetime member of the federally employed women because of my work on that litigation. And so this document is more than just an MVA, right? It's more than just what we talked about as far as sexual assault cases. Everything that Nasser said is absolutely true. You have to have those processes. But to me, and I know this about each and every one of you guys, when you guys step into a courtroom, you know it is about holding someone accountable because the law says they are. And that is what really moves the needle, I think, for all of us. And being a good businessman is important because I know a lot of lawyers, great lawyers, who can't keep their doors open. We've all seen it. They probably work for you too. No, they don't, because I don't want your staff to quit. So don't nod. Don't nod to that. Don't answer. As your lawyer, don't answer.
I want to switch gears a little bit and go back to something y'all were talking about a few minutes ago. Both of you have had some civil rights cases. What's been the effect of police body cam footage and dash cam footage and kind of the reality that everyone's running a video camera these days?
Twofold. We would not have had the success with George Floyd had it not been for that camera. As we've already established, I am old AF, right? I remember us telling our teachers and elders that we were being harassed by the police and no one believed us. And then Rodney King happened. And then everyone was like, oh shit, they might not be lying. But now we're coming to the point where we see so much of it, I don't know if it has the same effect. It's good for us as trial lawyers because we can use that as evidence and use that to try to get the justice for the family. On the case that I was just telling you about the young woman in the McDonald's, we were able to work with the state troopers and we got one of the officers with 2 felony charges. The other one got no bill. And so it does help, but this governmental immunity is horrible. Absolutely horrible. I had a doctor who choked a patient that wasn't his because he thought he was doing something. The police had to get the doctor off of him. The state attorney general dismissed our case and gave the doctor governmental immunity. And so that's the real corporate.
I was, it's a little, I guess, I'm with friends, so I can admit to things. So I was on the 51 yesterday, and it was 2:00 in the afternoon, and I was just driving. I wasn't speeding or anything. I was being a good driver. And all of a sudden, a motorcycle cop just got right behind me, like out of nowhere, just got right behind me. And I was like, what is going on? He told me I was on my cell phone, which, as a personal injury lawyer, maybe I shouldn't do, but I was looking at my phone.
Cut the tape.
Yeah.
Cut the tape.
As your lawyer, that didn't happen.
That didn't happen. Yeah, no,
You mean you were sitting on it? It was
that's
under
it.
your leg.
You know what? That's it. It was just out there somewhere. I wasn't answering emails or anything while I was driving on the 51. I would never do something like that ever. You know what? I was terrified. At 2:00 in the afternoon, I was terrified. I actually called my wife and I told her, just so you know, I'm being pulled over right now. I have never, my name is Nasser Usama Abujbarah. Okay, I'm a proud Palestinian American. I have never gone through the airport and not been randomly picked to have my suitcase. Never once have I gone through security scotch-free. Okay, not once in my life. And so when the police pulled me over yesterday for being on my phone, I was actually scared. And so, the body cams and all that kind of stuff. Listen, I'm jaded. You might be asking the wrong guy. Yes, does it get us justice in high-profile cases? Absolutely. But I don't think it's the body cam that does that. I think it's the people that do that. I think it's enough. It's enough people like Larry standing up and fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting until justice has happened. But I don't think it's evened up the playing field as much as you would like it to be. I really don't. Where I do think, however, that on those cases they've made it that now, I just think that same case, right? That case that I was talking about that I deposed our former police chief. I represented a journalist that was at the George Floyd protests. And he was taking some pictures and a police officer shot him twice. Our journalist turned around and tried to run away. While he was running away, the police officer shot him twice again. Okay? And so the night before I was going to depose our dear police chief, I got 5,000 reports of what happened at the George Floyd protest that day before. They just found him, right? I mean, just coincidentally, just got him the night before. I got him maybe like 6 o'clock that night. I stayed up all night trying to find what I could. I found some stuff, but I didn't do as good of a job as I could have. No way. I just wasn't prepared. There's no way I could be prepared.
Should have had Supio.
I should have had Supio.
I was going to say it. Yeah, I mean, like, you actually would.
This was 2021.
Yeah, it actually does level the playing field if you can take a bunch of documents and a bunch of data and run it through a machine and get a good answer.
I mean, I've told these guys this story a million times, right? The first trial I ever did at Phillips, I was third chair, and all I did was depot summaries and impeachment material. I was impeachment material for Dr. Zoran Merrick, who is an absolute, like the go-to defense expert in Arizona, right? And so he has 50,000 pages of impeachment material. That's all I did as third chair of this trial, just do it all. Nowadays, Supio does it in 5 minutes, right? That's where it evens the playing field, right? So like, what are this body cam footage? I think that just to be a plaintiff lawyer, you have to be screwed in the head. You have to be broken, because we are the underdog, right? And it's not just proving our case. We have to go above and beyond, because when your client's sitting next to you at trial, they're actually the one on trial, right? The jury's staring at them the entire time, looking at their mannerisms, looking at, are they really hurt? Are they telling the truth? They're not looking at the defendant that did anything, right? They're looking at your client. And so anything you can do to even that playing field, you have to do. You have to do. But yeah, I mean, still to this day, it's just the world we live in.
You and I need to go to trial together.
Let's do it, man. Let's do it tomorrow.
I don't even think they would look at our client. They'd be too busy like, okay, both of them are lawyers? Yeah. That guy has cornrows.
Okay, I want to talk about the next 10 years. Where are the future opportunities in law? Larry?
That is a question I am searching for myself, because I think a large part of that is going to have to do with what happens in the next 2 years. I really don't know where the law is at this point. Like, I'm hesitant to get into some tech litigation only because 230 is looming. And there's a couple of people in powerful positions that just need to hit a button, and it becomes a major problem, or I go away. And so that scares the hell out of me, that justice isn't always justice. And so I'm looking at litigations that kind of back in the time when I was a stockbroker. The guy told me, my mentor told me, he said, look, if you invest in what you use, you're always making money, right? If you eat Heinz ketchup, buy stock in Heinz. And so I'm looking for cases that America has stock in. Everyday people have stock in, because those are the type of litigations that people really care about. Because, so I represented a couple of hundred people involved in the Texas storm. Remember the big ice storm that hit Texas, right? Scared the hell out of me, because I got a beach house, and the ocean was frozen for like a damn mile. When it defrosted, it was fish everywhere. Texas Supreme Court all but threw our case out. And you're talking about millions of people affected behind something that was absolutely preventable. And so I'm looking to navigate around those type of things, but really find those cases that I can get the everyday man and woman behind. Because I think those are the cases that are going to move forward. Will I stop banging my head against those really tough cases that may or may not work? No, because those individuals need justice too.
Nasser?
You ever heard of the Gini index that talks about sort of, from a scale of 0 to 100 on how the citizenry feels about like whether, the haves and the have-nots, right? So like when in the French Revolution, right, on a scale of 0 to 100, the Gini was like 81. And today in America, it's at 84, right? That people feel like that, there's the top 1% and there's everybody else. right? There's people that can go on these prediction websites and 2 minutes before we bomb a country, they put in a bet for $400,000 and they become rich. And then there's everybody else that's just trying to work and trying to earn a living, right? That go back to that same number, 3.2 trillion miles driven last year. They're just, the common folk are just trying to do their best every single day to raise a family, to take care of their loved ones, to do those things. So what am I looking for? I'm looking to punch corporations in the nuts as long as I can. I want to hold the powerful accountable. I want, and as long as this country is designed the way it is, which it always will be. It doesn't matter political, nothing. It's the powerful that are trying to maintain power against people like you and me. And so whether that's sex abuse cases, whether that's institutional sex abuse, whether it's car crashes, whatever it is, it's where people in power are trying to hold their thumb on individuals. That's where my frame will be.
And I slightly disagree with you guys earlier.
Yeah.
Talking about the driverless cars.
That's totally valid. I mean, I know you didn't pick up on it, but I said, I don't know if it's gonna. My thesis is I don't know if it's gonna change in 2 years or 10, but I think it's gonna change, but it might not, and it certainly might not affect us, anytime soon.
You live in Texas with me.
Correct.
You try to pull one of them good old boys out their truck, you literally gonna have to come and take it. You probably gonna have to come and get me out of my Camaro. So, I mean, it's loud, it's pretty, it feels good when I drive it. I got an electric car. I like it too, because I like driving by the gas station and just driving slow, looking at people like, do they have electricity around here? And so, I mean, I've lived both worlds, but I just think it's just still something beautiful about the American automobile, especially classics. And I love classic cars. So if someone can figure out how to convert it and maybe still make noise, I might. I'm such a boy. I still might. I might convert it over.
It's really convenient to not have to drive also. It really is. I don't know. We'll see. They got to get the price down, or it's not. Like, to Nasser's point, it's not going to appeal to 100 million people if the price doesn't move. But our theory has been, with private equity money coming in, firms that are successful in one market wanting to go to other markets because that's how they can grow. There's crash prevention technology in bumpers. The cost of MVA cases seems to be going up. And you have to do things like become more efficient, like adopt.
I think it goes back to what Nasser was saying, the K-shaped economy. And I think there's going to be the K-shaped economy within the world of lawyers.
Without a doubt.
And there's going to be the lawyers who have all of the business, and there's going to be the lawyers who can't get any business.
Yeah.
Consolidation's coming.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
It's coming. I mean, it's already here, but it's definitely coming in the next couple of years, right? I mean, there are, the interesting thing is, right, the ones that run these megalith law firms, right? I mean, your, whether it's like your Rubensteins in Florida, your Morses and Bernsteins in Michigan, your Phillipses in Arizona, they're brilliant, right? So it's combining the two things. What you're talking about, you're not wrong. Right? Because what you can do when you're talking about those cases, you can take 5 or 10 of those cases and you can monetize those to the same extent that you can monetize 300-400 MBA cases. You can't, right? It's a different model. And it's a model that many law firms have to get into, because there's not that many Jeffs out there. There's just not, right? And so, like, I think we're both right. It's just a different, it's kind of a different side of it.
So let's talk about the monster in the closet, though, right? So you have places like California that have basically forbidden anything dealing with an ABS from litigating in its state. I was talking with a group of lawyers the other day, and they're doing now conflict checks against people who want them to be local counsel to find out if any of the plaintiffs were were obtained through an ABS marketing firm and someone has interest. And so I've actually written a white paper on this exact subject. So it's scary because now you have states that are doing things that are keeping people from actually exercising their right to have a choice of representation. And at the same time, you have a couple of bad actors who caused these courts in California to feel that way. And so it's going to be real interesting. I know that it's myself and a group of lawyers have talked about really coming together and kind of writing our own rules, right? Taking our side of the bench and just saying, okay, guys, this is how we're going to operate. And we don't need the court to interfere. We want to kind of self-police ourselves, kind of like what we do in a class action with leadership or within mass torts. Because once the courts start getting involved, it gets to be really, really scary. Because, like I said, now, what do you do if you have 1,000 cases that you've invested 3 years into that all of a sudden there's a 5% or 3% ownership in the case by some ABS? I mean, for those of you who don't do the business deal, you don't want to know how close to a stroke I just came to just talking about it, because it's a lot of money.
And it's not just ABSs. A lot of you are familiar with the MSO model, which is kind of popping up in a lot of places. And in Illinois right now, there's a bill circulating in their state Senate and House of Representatives that would ban MSOs in Illinois. So that tension's out there for the public.
And on top of MSOs, there's also some backlash against litigation funding in general. For instance, in a lot of this AI-related litigation, not one of our cases, but a case that actually, hopefully, knock on wood, gets approved on Thursday. It's a $1.5 billion settlement against Anthropic for how they got their data. We're friends with the lawyers in that case. On top of just generally litigating the case, it cost them $17 million just for class administration. Okay, so you get the case settled, then you have to pay $17 million, but the current state of class action litigation and litigation in general, courts will not let you, or maybe not will not let you, frown very heavily on obtaining litigation funding. So not only does your firm have to win, you also have to have $17 million laying around to float the class administration costs. And there's a real conversation to have, to Larry's point, where when does it become preventative to access to justice, right? How do you balance the equities of, you want the lawyer to do their job, you don't want them to be bound by, some outrageous interest rate or somebody behind the scenes pulling the strings, but at the same time, as plaintiffs' lawyers who represent regular people who aren't billing by the hour, we can't expect our clients to pay these sort of costs, and it takes a lot of money to bring a novel litigation to the forefront, to a posture where you can win, especially when you're going against the biggest and baddest companies in the world.
You read my white paper? Yeah. Because I feel plagiarism.
But that was the sin, the sin about ABSs, right? And that's the problem, because the way they pitched ABS in Arizona, it was quote unquote access to justice, right? Do we need more PI lawyers? Really? You guys driven down the freeway here? We need more of us? Come on. So this idea, right, that the ABS model, the way it was pitched, that it was going to help rural communities and get them family lawyers and get them lawyers that are going to help them with real estate needs and all that kind of stuff. That sounds great in theory, but greed always wins, right? And so that's why there's such a backlash against the ABS model, is because it was all PI lawyers. And it was all PI lawyers coming to Arizona. It was a private equity coming in and just to get cases, right? And so you're right. Now the next step is the MSOs, which is, it's nice. It's a novel theory behind it, but it's I don't know. I just think it's the same thing. At the end of the day, it's, in my opinion, just greed. It's just greed because it's just like it's the access. Like so, yes. So does it help if you're standing up against Anthropic, if you're standing up against these giants to have funding behind you? Absolutely. Does it help to get private equity behind you to help you become more efficient, to help you with your systems? Without a doubt. But what's happening on the ground is not that, right? What's happening on the ground is more buses and more billboards.
So you saw my billboard?
I think you would look great on a billboard.
I was gonna put a billboard over here, Old Town. Yeah, because I'm licensed in Arizona, but no, I wouldn't. If I'll send all my cases to you.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
But I think, man, Nasser, don't miss the forest for the trees, right? Because there is, let's just be honest, right? It's people who look like you and me, who just got into this industry. We don't come from legacy firms, so we don't have $100 million laying around in the bank gaining interest. And we want to represent people. We want to do a good job. I got a truck wreck case and I have 20 attorneys in my face hitting me with all kinds of discovery, and I can't afford Supio. I want to get justice for this family. Does things like what you were talking about happen? Yes, they are jerks. But man, when I think about the people who we can help and other attorneys can help, I just think the good outweighs the few knuckleheads. I've been fortunate in the sense that we've had great verdicts, and I basically have self-funded my firm. But not everyone can do that. And I'm pretty sure some very talented lawyers out here, more talented than me, if given the right resources, could do some great things.
Absolutely, just come work at Phillips Law Group and I'll get you all the resources you need. But listen, like, you're not wrong. You're not wrong, but here's the thing though, like you're one of the good ones. And that's where I think that you're in the forest too, okay? Because you're one of the good lawyers, and you're looking at it from that perspective. I just, unfortunately, sitting in Arizona every day, and seeing what's happened ever since the ethical rules got. We were talking about this earlier. Like I think most of you know this, but if I'm walking down the street right now, and someone just got ran over, right? I can take out my retainer and I can take out a check and say, how much do you want for you to sign my retainer? That's legal in Arizona.
What?
That is legal. Like ambulance chasing is legal in Arizona. Okay, and so I'm in the forest that's burning, right? And that's what we're seeing every day. That's what happened. The ABS model has created, right? Because the only way for the ABS system to have been created in Arizona is they had to get rid of ethical rule 5.4. Okay, and so. Literally, it's free game here. Why are there so many lawyers in Arizona?
You talked about new business opportunities, because while the state of Arizona has turned a blind eye, the federal government hasn't, and it's a bounty on law firms that do things like that.
Why do you think that the two biggest MSO deals in the country are two law firms in Arizona?
You guys do some things here.
Yeah, we do.
We do.
Yeah.
And I think it's the heat. I mean, it might be so hot that it's just messing with the people's heads. And they just out here just doing things willy-nilly. But I mean, like I said, the federal government, that rule didn't pass there.
Bring them here, because yeah.
So with that, we've been going for an hour, which is our show time.
Y'all are a great audience.
Y'all are a great audience.
Fantastic.
I want to give a round of applause for our guests.
Yeah.
And look, the more than just the show, the whole purpose of this is the before and after. We're gonna hang around. We're gonna get some drinks. Feel free to come talk to these guys or us about what we think the future is. We'd love to talk to you. And it was great meeting everybody.
Yes, and there are Supio reps here. Would you please raise your hands? All right. Yeah. Everyone up here is big fans of Supio. If you don't use them, talk to them. They're not going to bite you.
And we all use. It sounds like we all use Supio in different ways.
Yeah, very different ways.
So talk to them. They're paying for tonight. So I mean,
Can I ask you guys a favor first?
Well, you can ask.
Do you guys think it'll be a good idea for everybody on this panel to come do my podcast?
Yes.
I want you guys to come do my podcast.
Yes.
And let's really continue this conversation. And then I'm gonna throw some real like hip hop trivia at you, and we're gonna crank it up a notch. All right.
Sure.
All right.
Thanks everybody.
Thank you, everyone.